Good evening. I call to order the special meeting of the York County School Board for Monday, September the 11th. Again, good evening, everybody. We're all in place except for one. Dr. Vivian had another engagement, so he's not here with us this evening. But we have a number of presentations, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Dr. Shander, the first one to open the school year.
Thank you, Ms. Haywood. Board members, good evening. Before I get to the opening of school report, I did want to mention one thing from today. We had a announcement that Mr. Richardson and a number of other school officials met with us at Tabb Middle School today. We announced that Teresa Golterman, who is a teacher at Tabb Middle School, received the Region 2 Teacher of the Year today, so we're really proud of her. It's a wonderful award. We haven't had the Region 2 Teacher of the Year for 10 to 12 years, is that right?
Yes,
So we're really proud of her. And so she's going to move on, and the official Virginia State Teacher of the Year will be announced on the 18th. So we're really proud of her.
Keep our fingers crossed. Yes, we are. Congratulations to her.
It's exciting.
Yes.
All right, I will jump in. So opening of school report, we're now in the second week of school. And this evening I want to share just an update related to opening of schools. Last week I had the opportunity to visit all 19 of our schools as well as our maintenance and transportation departments. Want to share some numbers and statistics with you this evening. So this summer our maintenance staff cleaned over 1.8 million square foot, which is in all 19 of our schools. We still have open custodial positions, so our custodians worked long and hard to get our buildings ready. Those folks did a fabulous job. As far as construction goes, we've updated you throughout the summer on our projects. Want to give kudos to our maintenance department, custodial, and construction staff for the renovation projects at Yorktown and Bethel Manor Elementary School. The cafeteria and entrance expansions at Yorktown look beautiful, and the staff and students really appreciate the new air conditioning, heating, LED lighting, windows and cabinets, as well as restroom renovations at both schools. We're pleased with the work that was completed by the contractors, school division staff, PTA parents, and numerous others to get us ready for students on day one. Transportation, James Lash and his staff over the summer made sure that all 160 buses were inspected and underwent maintenance and service. On the first day, we did experience some late buses, as we typically do. However, most of the routes have improved greatly, and I'm really proud of our transportation and our drivers. For the first time I rode buses on the first day, which was an awesome experience. I enjoyed riding the buses the first day with Mr. Crockett, Miss Tina, and Miss Hodges in the York Zone. So all of this work prepared us to welcome over 12,583 students last week on September 5th. The enrollment number has grown every day. Today is day 5 of the 10-day head count process, and we're at 12,653. And Dr. Carroll, Dr. Guy, and other members of our team, we monitor this very closely. And it's important to note that our projection for this year was 12,570. So I always like to share a couple interesting facts with the board about the first day. So we welcomed 840 of our students as members of the class of 2030, and that's this year's kindergarten class. So they're going to graduate 2030.
And how many was that?
840. And what's interesting about this is it's actually down 45 students from last year's class. On the first day of school, our buses made over 3,500 stops to pick up over 10,000 students, and they traveled roughly 10,000 miles. We served approximately 25,696 ounces of milk, which equates to 201 gallons of milk. While that may fill a small pool, it would certainly fill 2.5 bathtubs. I know this is all essential information that you all want to know. The average tub is 80 gallons. Finally, we served approximately 7,128 chicken nuggets on the first day of school. So want to share that information with you all. I feel like we had a really good start to the school year from convocation to day one. I'm really proud of all the work of our teachers and staff. So I'll take any questions about the opening of school.
I have one, and I think it's because if you look at our website, just because I'm District 1, I tend to get a lot of the phone calls because they think it's school board office. So, and that's fine, and I will direct them to the school board number. But for parents who have a concern about buses, normally when I get a call, I may say Dr. James, but only because Carl and I have been together for a long time. Oftentimes I'll send it to you.
Right.
And you direct it, but as far as, should I still do it that way for parents who call concerning buses? Direct it to you
I think
or
the
direct-
first thing is to have them contact the school. I think that would be a great opportunity for our schools. We did provide, and I'm not sure if we provided extra staff for James on the first day. I'm sorry, for the first week of school. Are they still there, James?
I have a few, yes.
So we've put some extra people there to man those phones for us. I would refer them to the school, and then if there's some cause or concern
If
there.
going to the school does not suffice,
Yep.
you and Mr. Lash,
Yeah,
or Carl?
I would
Carl first?
yeah. Call Carl, he'll help.
Call Carl.
He'll help foster them. I mean, we've received, a number of calls related to buses, especially that first day. We know that first day is tough. Just the traffic patterns, everyone's taking pictures on the first day. I was on the buses, so I saw kids get on the bus and stop on the steps and turn around for their annual
Yeah.
picture. So there's a number of things that happen, but James and his team have worked tirelessly through getting a lot of the routes, making sure that we're getting kids where it's timely and safe. We want to get them there safe. So
I have to say, I enjoyed that first morning, my drive down the road, my normal drive. It's about 6 stops. So of course, I was behind the bus and got to see them all and the parents. It's just so funny. But I will say, each one had about a 2-minute conversation with the bus driver at each bus stop. So I was about 15 minutes late to work. But it was really cool to see. And took me back to my own kids. And it's just an exciting time.
Now, I do know that, we received a few phone calls, probably more than the norm, because of the new software package that really went into bus routes and bus stops and things like that. But it was I appreciated the couple of return emails or phone calls thanking me for, well, not thanking staff, I guess, but just letting me know how well it was handled, that it was taken care of, they got their questions answered. There was one that it bounced back and forth a couple of times, but it finally got resolved. So, kudos to you and your staff and what's going on over there in that crazy world in the first week of school. The buses going all different directions, and I think the traffic people were ready for it. So, Route 17 was ready for it.
yeah.
And I just want to say, I know it's a tough job with, especially the first day of school, because like you had mentioned, Dr. Shandor, the parents go to the bus driver, have a conversation. Is this the same time you're going to be here, tomorrow and the rest of the school year? I was guilty of the same thing when my kids were going through York County schools. So, and the bus drivers certainly want to be polite and not cut anybody off. So, the first day of school is going to be some trying with some routes sometimes. So we certainly understand that. And I do appreciate the calls back afterwards when things were working out, commending our staff. So did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty,
All right.
thank you. And we have the next presentation is elementary attendance zone update.
Yeah, Dr. James is going to have a discussion with the board.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shandor. Ms. Haywood, members of the board. As you may recall, on August 14th when we met in a work session, I shared a timeline with you for the process to balance elementary attendance zones. And tonight I'll give you a brief update on where we are with that timeline. First of all, to ensure participation from all schools, from parents from all schools in this process, an invitation for participating in the elementary attendance zones balancing committee was sent out to all elementary parents on August 29th. This information was also posted on elementary websites, the division website, on Facebook, and on Twitter. As of today, 18 parents volunteered to serve on the committee from that process, and 2 parents, when we discussed this in the spring, also volunteered to serve. So we do have 20 parents now that have volunteered to serve on this committee. However, I can tell you representation from all of the schools is not even. So my plan now is to work with principals to identify additional individuals to serve on the committee, so make sure we have appropriate representation across all 10 elementary schools. And I can also tell you that on next Tuesday night, the 19th at 6:30 at school board office, we'll hold our initial meeting. The purpose of the first meeting is going to be to review all of the data and information that the consultants shared with the board in March as a starting point before we get into making the decision. And Dr. Butler has volunteered to serve with me on doing some decision analysis and going through a scan process to get us to an eventual decision. I can tell you that's a lot of data we need to share during the first meeting. And as we talked about today, and it may be too much for one meeting with all that data, but that's going to be the basis, I believe, for us to make an informed decision. I can also share with you that additional meetings are scheduled throughout September and October. And if the process goes according to plan, we'll bring a recommendation to you for discussion in early November. And then that process continues through November, and hopefully by the December regular board meeting, we'll have a recommendation to you for consideration. Also in that process, we'll also, as required by policy, a hearing on the final recommendation of the committee. Have any questions for me on where we are with the process right now?
And I
Will that be
think,
on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Ms. Richardson said last time we talked about this, that we needed to make sure we keep the community updated on where we are with the process. So that's something we need to work on, how we're going to share information from each committee member with our communities. Everyone is informed before a final decision is reached.
I know it's been a while, especially over the summer, but last school year, are we looking also at school start time, bus routes? As there were 3 major issues we were looking at, but kind of wanted to look at all of it together. Will we still be looking at the others as we proceed with this?
Right. I can tell you about the bus routing efficiency. That was part of the information we used in conjunction with our new software from the consultant to adjust the bus routes.
Okay,
So that process has moved forward. Now, the other part is, at the pleasure of the board, what we do with school start times. And of course, right now, my plan is to move forward with the elementary attendance zones, and we need to discuss what happened with the school start time issue.
all righty, thank you. And next staffing report?
Yep, now Dr. Carroll is going to provide an update on the staffing report.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Last month, I presented to you where we were at with hiring for the summer, and I'm back this month with kind of similar numbers because of late resignations that came right before the beginning of school. But as of right now, we have 37 total positions open in the division. It's about 12 more than at any given time. We usually have about 20 to 25 that are open at any time, so that's our normal kind of frictional time between people leaving and people getting hired. First I'll deal with non-licensed before licensed. Non-licensed right now, we have 24 openings. Those are primarily 9 paraeducator positions and 4 custodians. Now, a lot of those positions are hired late in the summer, and not with the custodians, but with the paraeducators. We've had an awful lot of resignations just in the last couple of weeks. So I'm not concerned about them not being filled in the next week or so, but we are going through that process. Then before I talk about license, Dr. Shandor touched on the fact that we have a process in August where we're looking at those, not the class sizes, but the enrollment as things come in, and then we give it very close scrutiny those 2 weeks before school. Excuse me. And in that 2-week run-up to school opening, we have seen, as Dr. Shandor shared, some significant enrollments beyond our projections. So we actually added 4 classroom teachers at the elementary level in the weeks before the weeks before school opened. And I'm happy to report that all 4 of those positions that were given out have been filled either before school opened or just a couple of days after the school opened. Although that leaves us with 13 openings in the licensed areas. The biggest issue, once again, this year is special education teachers, where we have 6.5 openings. Last year, we opened school with 4 openings. And once again, a lot of these are last-minute resignations coming in. These people aren't leaving to go to another division. Most of them were making late decisions to stay home, or were personal situations where they moved out of the division. This is the 2nd year in a row we've been placed in this position. So we're definitely going to work this fall to brainstorm some alternatives to filling positions earlier that we anticipate, possibly some centralized hiring. So we're going to be digging into that in the next couple months. Another area of concern that we have is our inability to attract employees in the speech and language area and in occupational therapy. We are currently 4 short there. And that seems to be compensation and a tight labor market issue. So we're going to continue to work through that also. And we do have 1 elementary classroom opening, and that's 1 in kindergarten, but that's because of a recent in-division promotion. So we feel confident that's going to be filled in a short order. So that completes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
I just have a question on the special ed. That's concerning, that's growing. Do we need to do some like strategic recruiting or, looking for colleges or universities somewhere other than Virginia maybe that are producing more in that area of expertise so we can.
Right, the problem there is that teachers as a whole, the labor market, or not the labor market, but yes, the labor market's getting tighter because the teacher preparation programs are putting out less students, and special ed is no exception there. I will tell you that last fall, the 4 positions that we had open, we filled by going to a certain university who had a fall job fair, and we lured 2 of those away, so that helped. And then there's always people moving into this area, and so we were able to fill all 4 of those spots before the second semester. That's not the solution we want as fast as we want, but I think that what we need to look for is hiring earlier in the year and projecting what kind of losses we're going to have, because now we're starting to see a trend over the last 2 years.
That was my next question, is can we overhire? Can we find a way within our budget to overhire positions in that area so that we have a build-up, just so that we know what's going to happen next year?
Right, that's what I'm proposing we explore this fall.
But I think, Jim, as we're competing with other school divisions, they're offering early contracts, so some of our
Certainly,
surrounding.
we want to compete there for quality. The problem that we've been experiencing is the late departures. So if we're going to go ahead and hire early, we might as well hire real early, and then that way we get better quality even too.
Do we still offer this stipend, hard to fill? At one time, we had that for positions that were hard to fill in high school math or science or
Right,
something.
we
do
do
that?
have the variable supplement, but, and we do offer moving expenses for people to come into hard-to-hire areas, but who are moving from out of state.
That's great, that's long-term, but right now, school year started, we're down 6.5 weeks. What's the short term?
Short-term is long-term subs that are trusted by the principals to be filling those roles, and that's what's happening now. And then, like I said, looking for the fall job fairs as we can find them. We've got at least one placement where we've got a student who's doing their student teaching who's going to be certified by the end of the year. But not all schools will allow us to do that, so we're doing the best we can.
And you may have some December graduates as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'd like to fill it before that, but
Right.
that's the last thing that we're going to have to
With
do.
our subs, we are able to provide the quality care that we want to provide.
Certainly not what we prefer.
Right,
Right.
okay.
Is it still, do school districts still, and would it even fit this need, the provisional licensure? I know we stepped back from that years ago. I don't know if we do that anymore.
We do.
We've resorted to that this year. We have about a handful of provisional licensures where last year we had 1 and the year before we had 0.
Right.
But we're getting to that point where we have to grant that to fill the positions we need.
That was going to be my question on provisional licenses, but also, just so people in the county know, this isn't new to just your county. This is not region-wide, this is statewide, maybe even.
It's a national issue.
National issue that everybody's dealing with, so.
And
But I'm-
probably more, and I'm gonna jump into more because we're identifying students with more problems versus the like of, has that number risen? That's gotten higher.
I'd defer on that, but I would imagine, I know they have, I don't know how much or percentage.
Yes, as I shared last spring, I don't have the data with me right now, but as we shared last year, the percentage of students in certain groups that have higher needs has increased. And so we've added teacher FTEs every year to the budget for special education. And
When we talk about being a national phenomenon, makes me think that it's something that this country is identifying more or labeling more, however you want to call it. and we're just not putting the people in place, educating, whatever the case may be, the numbers that you need.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Carroll. All right, our next presentation, or I should say our final presentation for the evening, Dr. Stephanie Guy, our Chief Academic Officer, is going to present and introduce a few members of her department who will provide an update on our strategic plan relating to Goal 1 objectives. Dr. Guy.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Good evening, Mrs. Haywood, members of the board. Tonight, we will provide the strategic plan status update to many of the objectives listed under Goal 1 of the FY13-17 strategic plan. This presentation, along with several other reports over the next few months, will close out the updates on our old strategic plan. This evening, I'll provide a broad overview of the division's success with respect to accreditation and the federal AMOs, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Skinner and Dr. Vladu to address our performance at the elementary and secondary levels. In addition to the data, they will identify specific actions taken to which we attribute our successes and next steps for identified areas of growth. Goal 1 of the York County School Division Strategic Plan states that York County students will consistently demonstrate growth and excellence in the skills and knowledge needed to be productive citizens. Under Goal 1 of the strategic plan, there are 4 objectives we'll address this evening. You'll see each of these objectives individually as we move through the presentation. The first objective we will address this evening speaks to our performance on the SOLs. Prior to last year, there were 2 standards we were required to meet for state accountability purposes. First, a school's state accreditation rating reflects overall achievement, the performance of all students combined in the 4 core academic areas of English, math, history, and science. High schools must also meet an additional minimum benchmark for graduation completion. Pass rates for accreditation are 70% for all content areas except English, which is 75%. Schools in which students meet or exceed all achievement objectives established by the Virginia Board of Education are rated as fully accredited. This standard is still part of the state accountability system. Second, the federal No Child Left Behind Act, NCLB, previously required states to establish annual measurable objectives, AMOs, for raising reading and mathematics performance for specific subgroups. Additionally, rather than fixed targets as you have with accreditation, the AMO targets increase each year. In December of 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, replaced NCLB. Under ESSA, states will develop new federal accountability systems to be implemented in the 2017-18 school year. So as we report our performance tonight, we will speak to our performance on AMO targets, but recognize that these targets are not presently part of the state accountability system. However, we're using them to monitor student achievement for all subgroups. Once again, we anticipate that all 19 YCSD schools will be fully accredited for FY18. We're proud of this accomplishment and would like to recognize our hardworking students, dedicated teachers and administrators, and supportive York County families. It's because of the collaborative efforts of these groups that we continue to achieve at such high levels year after year. This slide provides an overview of our performance on the federal AMO targets. As I shared previously, these AMO targets are not presently part of the state accountability system. So in the middle column, labeled Federal AMO Status, you will see not applicable next to each school. However, we have identified the targets missed based on the previously established AMOs for FY17. Please note at the bottom of the slide, I have defined which students are included in each gap group. Gap Group 1 includes students with disabilities, English learners, and economically disadvantaged students. Gap Group 2, Black students, and Gap Group 3, Hispanic students. You'll hear references to these groups throughout the presentation. At the division level, we missed 1 of 27 AMO targets, specifically in English for students with disabilities. At the elementary level, only 2 schools missed 1 or more AMOs. These schools include Coventry Elementary and Yorktown Elementary. This is an improvement from the previous year where 3 schools missed 1 or more AMO targets. At the middle school level, all 4 schools missed 1 or more AMO subgroups. This is a decline from the previous year where 2 of 4, Tab Middle and Yorktown Middle, met all AMO targets. At the high school level, 3 of 5 met all 27 AMO targets. As you can see, Bruton High School and Grafton High School both missed only 1 of 27 targets. Last year, all but 1 high school met all 27. So let's take a closer look at the growth we saw across the division this past year. As you take a look at the next few slides, I want to draw your attention to a few things in this graph. Our pass rates for 2014 are light blue. Pass rates for 2015 are in green, pass rates for 2016 are purple, and pass rates for 2017 are in dark blue or navy. The AMO targets are gray. You'll see this color scheme repeated throughout this presentation. So how did we do in reading? The division met or exceeded all federal AMO targets with the exception of students with disabilities. While we maintained our performance from the previous year, we missed the AMO target of 66%. Although not where we want to be, it's important to note that our pass rate for students with disabilities was the 4th highest in the state. From 2014 to 2017, we've demonstrated continuous growth in all areas except one. The pass rate for English learners dipped slightly from the previous year, less than 2 percentage points. However, our pass rate for English learners is the 2nd highest in the state. In math, the division once again met or exceeded all federal AMO targets this year. Most groups held steady from the previous year with minimal gains. Performance for English learners declined by less than 2 percentage points. Again, however, our pass rate for this subgroup is in the top tier, tied at 4th highest in the state. With respect to the federal graduation indicator, which calculates graduation cohort data counting only standard and advanced studies diplomas, YCSD met or exceeded all federal AMOs for FGI, and we saw tremendous growth in multiple subgroups. The division demonstrated the most notable growth for Gap Group 2, Black students, and students with disabilities. The federal graduation rate for Black students improved by almost 15 percentage points from FY14 to FY17, with over half of that growth in just the past year. The graduation rate for students with disabilities was even more significant, with a gain of 24 percentage points since FY14. Additionally, 18 of the 24 percentage points occurred in just the past year. We're very proud of these results, and Mr. Vladu will provide greater specificity later in the presentation. Before I turn the presentation over to Ms. Skinner to provide more detailed information regarding our performance at the elementary level, are there any questions regarding our results at the division level?
Will you come with plans for the future and how to, later on this presentation of?
Yes, Ms. Skinner and Mr. Vladu will speak specifically to next steps. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Skinner.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide you with an update on the performance of our elementary schools this evening. As Dr. Guy shared earlier, we expect all York County elementary schools to be fully accredited again this year. This slide illustrates some of those accomplishments that we have achieved. As you can see from this chart, our schools made great progress in both English and math last year. I'm excited to share that 5 of our schools continued to show improvements in English this year, and 6 schools held steady or continued to show gains in math. Additionally, 6 of our 10 schools had scores in the 90s in all 4 subject areas again this year. As you may already know, the scores you see for English and math include an average for grades 3 through 5. What you don't see is that in grade 5, 100% of the students pass the SOL test at Waller Mill Elementary School for the 3rd year in a row. Additionally, 100% of the students at Tab Elementary School's grade 5 passed a math SOL test this year. We also like to know how we compare regionally and statewide. In grades 3 and 5 English, we are first in our region, and in grade 5, we are tied for first in the state of Virginia. We are currently ranked in the top 3 divisions for our region in grades 3, 4, and 5 math. These results also show some areas where we will still need to continue to work. As you can see, some of our schools had declines in specific subject areas. Later in my presentation, I will share some of our next steps we're planning for improving student performance at the elementary school level. This chart provides a glimpse of the AMO performance for our elementary schools in the area of reading. As Dr. Guy shared, this is not part of the state accountability system, but we have provided it here since we do measure this as part of our strategic plan. On this chart, you will see areas marked in green, which indicate all of the AMO areas where elementary improved by 2 or more percentage points from FY16. We are excited to share that 7 of our schools made progress in at least 3 subgroup areas this year. In addition, 8 of our 10 elementary schools met all of the 9 federal AMOs as compared to last year when 7 schools met this goal. On a special note, I'd like to direct your attention to Magruder Elementary School. As you may recall, Magruder missed 4 AMO targets last year in reading. I am pleased to share that they did not miss a single AMO target this year, and in addition, they demonstrated double-digit gains in 5 areas. The AMO data also shows that although we continue to make progress in many areas, we still have work to do in the area of students with disabilities. Additionally, Yorktown and Coventry Elementary Schools missed 1 or more AMOs in reading performance this year. Later, I'll share some specific strategies we've identified to improve student performance in these schools. This chart provides a glimpse of our AMO performance for elementary math. Last year, 7 of our 10 elementary schools met all of the 9 federal AMOs for math. This year, we continue to make progress with 9 of our 10 schools meeting this goal. And just like the chart on the previous page, you will see areas marked in green, which indicate the AMO areas where elementary improved by 2 or more percentage points. On a special note, I'd like to direct your attention to Tab Elementary School. Tab made gains in 8 of 9 subgroup categories, with 5 of those being double-digit gains. Among these were an 11 percentage point gain for students with disabilities and a 25 percentage point gain for English learners. The AMO data also shows that we have work to do in the area of students with disabilities in math. As you can see, we have some schools that made great gains in this area, and we plan to tap into their successes and share it with our other schools. So now I'd like to share information regarding our grade 3 reading goal, which states that by FY17, 90% of our 3rd graders will be reading at or above grade level as measured by the standards of learning. This chart shows the division's growth from FY15 to FY17 in grade 3 reading. Before I share this information about the slide, I think it's important to provide a historical picture of grade 3 reading over the past 4 years. Although not pictured, the division average for grade 3 reading in FY14 was 75%. In FY15, the benchmark for grade 3 reading was set at 85%, and 8 of our 10 schools met that benchmark. That was great progress from the year prior when none of our schools met that benchmark. In FY16, the benchmark for grade 3 reading was set at 87.5%, and 6 of our 10 schools met that benchmark. This year, the benchmark was moved to 90%, which you see is represented there with that black line. As you can see, our division average was 90%. And 5 of our 10 schools did meet that benchmark as well. 3 of our schools, Bethel Manor, Dare, and Grafton, missed that benchmark by 2 or less percentage points. The state average for grade 3 reading this year is 75%. We are excited to share that York County not only exceeded this average, but we ranked 3rd in the state for grade 3 reading. 6 of our elementary schools showed gains in grade 3 reading this year. In addition, Magruder Elementary achieved double-digit gains with an increase in 15 percentage points. While we're pleased with this progress, while we're pleased with the progress that we're making in grade 3 reading, we do know that we do have some students that did not pass, and each of our schools will continue to work with those students to make sure that they are prepared and ready for 4th grade. This slide provides cohort data for our elementary students who completed grade 5 this past June. The green bar on this chart shows our grade 3 reading scores from FY15, and our average performance for that year was 88%. The purple bar shows cohort data with those same students and their performance in grade 4 reading in FY16. The division average was 89%. Finally, please take a look at the blue bar. This bar shows cohort data for those same students and their performance in grade 5 reading this past year. The division average was 93%, which is an increase of 5 percentage points from where they began in grade 3. As I shared earlier, we are excited to share that our 5th grade reading scores are tied for 1st place in the state. I'd also like to highlight the following schools: Coventry, Dare, and Seaford, who showed double-digit gains in cohort growth over the past 2 years. In addition to this, for the 3rd year in a row, Waller Mill students received a 100% on grade 5 English test.
If you would, what was the FY15 grade 3 percentage?
Let's see, for FY15, go back, I apologize. I can't see it quite up there, I think it was
FY15.
88%, is that what I said?
I know grade 4 was 89, so I missed that grade 3.
89, yes. And then we finished it at 93. Any other questions?
No, that's fine, that's fine. I just missed the numbers.
That's okay. So this, so as you can see from the information that we've shared tonight, we do have a lot to be proud of in our elementary schools. This slide highlights some of those actions to which we attribute our success. One of our top priorities this year was to launch professional learning communities, or as we call them, PLCs. The school board office provided ongoing professional development while our schools organized and met in PLCs throughout the school year. And during these collaborative meetings, many of our teams unpacked state standards to ensure that there was a shared understanding, or as we like to call it, a guaranteed and viable curriculum. This is really important in our schools because we have to first of all make sure that all students have access to the same information and that it aligns to the state standards. During these PLC meetings, we also create common formative assessments. These allow us to measure students' learning throughout a unit of study rather than waiting until they just take the test at the end. If we check for understanding along the way, we have a lot more opportunities to help them and to reteach them. When students meet in PLCs, they are also planning ahead. So they're planning ahead for students for remediation, for intervention, in order to help any student who may not have mastered that information. And the teachers in these meetings are able to share ideas with each other for that. PLCs also encourage our teachers to think about differentiating instruction for our students who have already mastered that skill. And the school division has provided many training programs, and you've heard me mention those before, things like junior grade books, number talks, and math exemplars. We use those to provide enrichment and extension within our classroom. Now I'd like to share a few next steps we've planned in English this year. In grades K through 2, we administer the Phonological Awareness Literacy Screening, or we call that PALS, to all students. This assessment looks at students' reading progress and provides specific information about each student's reading and word study competencies. One of the subtests within PALS is called Concept of Word, and we call that CAL. I know it's a funny name. Research clearly shows that students who struggle in grade 3 reading often lacked a firm concept of word in kindergarten. So last year we trained the K-2 teachers at Magruder Elementary School on how to assess and teach this concept. I'm excited to share that 83% of the students at Magruder ended the year with a firm concept of word, which was the highest of any elementary school in our division. We're currently providing that same training to our K-2 teachers at Yorktown Elementary School, as well as 3 instructional trainers in every one of our elementary schools. The work that we're doing with PALS and CAL aligns to the 3rd implementation phase of our literacy model, which is focused on word study instruction. In York County, we've always associated word study with spelling, and research indicates that word study is actually the cornerstone of literacy and should be explicitly taught and monitored by the classroom teacher. In the year ahead, we will utilize our instructional trainer model to provide professional development in the area of word study to all of our K-2 teachers. The information I've shared on this slide supports our belief in the critical importance of a strong K-2 literacy program, and we're excited to share that one of our reading specialist positions has been modified to include literacy coaching. This person will work one-on-one with teachers and staff to help plan, to co-teach, to model and support literacy instruction in the classroom. So now I'd like to share some next steps for math. The VDOE approved new math standards in 2016. Our teachers worked this summer to develop new curriculum guides to support those standards, along with Chrissy Pica, who's over here. Just as we did with our literacy, we developed a math model, and we're working to develop that now, to help support and frame the best practices in math instruction. This model will be created by the Math Model Committee, which will be comprised of teachers and administrators with input from parents. The new math standards are centered around 5 student process goals, and they what they do is they describe like what should students be doing in the math classroom as they're learning. And so all of our K-5 teachers received an overview of those new standards this summer, and then our teachers in grades 3 through 5 will receive additional training throughout this year to help them operationalize those standards in the classroom. Let's see, building administrators are also going to receive training on the new math standards this year, and to help them identify what to look for in the classroom, we've developed a walkthrough tool, and that tool will help administrators identify the process standards and also where additional training might be needed for their teachers. So now I'd like to talk about some additional next steps that we've identified for content areas in schools. At the end of each school year, our administrators share the outcomes of their school improvement plans with members of the school board office as well as other building administrators. And during that presentation, they always highlight their successes and what they attribute those successes to. For example, this year, Seaford Elementary School shared that they had a 100% pass rate for students with disabilities in grade 5 reading. Tabb Elementary School had a 100% rate for students with disabilities in grade 5 math. When they shared their presentations, they talked about things like teacher collaboration, class schedules, some specific programs, and a remediation block that they felt were the keys to that success. And so we've already provided, and we're going to continue to provide opportunities for our other schools to hear about that and learn from those. And then as I shared earlier, training in concept of word and word study will be provided to all of our K-2 teachers this year. We'll provide that additional training also where there are other instructional needs in grade 3 reading and math. So this concludes my portion of the presentation, and before I turn it over to Dr. Vladu, I'd like to see if you guys might have any questions for me.
Go ahead. I have one. Our reading specialists that are in the schools to help out with the reading, of course. How is that determined on how many we have in each school? Is it population and need, or I mean, how do you figure that? And what do we have in each school, or not each school, but basically roughly?
Okay, so we look at a couple of different factors. Each school does receive a reading specialist, and then if we look at the size of the school and The percent of free and reduced lunch also plays into that, but we allocate our staff according to that first. And then we have Title I. And Title I also pays for additional reading specialists. And so schools that have Title I, looking at the percentage, the grant helps us allocate how much each school is allotted, and that's how we put those additional staff members in place. Dr. Guy, did I leave anything out?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, all elementary schools receive one reading specialist.
Some
And,
have
and a couple of our elementary schools that are not Title I have an additional reading specialist or part of a reading specialist. And that is based exactly what Ms. Skinner said on schools that are larger in size and have a slightly larger free and reduced lunch population in their school, but aren't in our Title I group.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna ask a loaded question. Not really, though. All right, fantastic presentation, great information, next steps, great. Where do they capture the time to do the collaborative get-togethers, you know?
PLCs.
Yeah, that stuff. I mean, obviously, teachers show up before school starts to really start getting things going. Y'all have academies and things for them to go through. But is there times during the school year, just for the public to understand, there are times where teachers can collaborate?
Yes, there is. And so each teacher, of course, has a planning time during the school day. We, and I think all of our elementary schools, the grade levels have the same planning time. So usually once a week or once every 2 weeks, the team will come together with the building principal or an assistant principal, as well as reading specialists. Sometimes if there's additional staff that support the team, they will come together during at least once a week, if not every 2 weeks, to get together and have those conversations. That's where they look and to make sure there's a guaranteed and viable curriculum. We're all teaching the same standards. They come up with common formative assessments. They talk about the outcomes of those assessments so they can provide targeted remediation right away rather than waiting.
Now, you identify something at Building A that's working fantastic.
Yes.
You want to share that information with Building the other 9.
Yes.
How does that occur?
Good question. So we are currently planning for our assistant principal meeting that's happening later this month. And one of the things that we'll offer to our assistant principals are roundtables. And so all of our departments come together and we develop certain roundtables that we feel like would be most helpful to them. And this upcoming one, we have the assistant principal from Tab Elementary School and the assistant principal from Seaford Elementary School offering a roundtable session on specifically what they did in their schools to work with their students with disabilities. So other schools can attend that.
We also have time in the principals meeting for them to have collaborative time. And in that collaborative time, a large part of it is them determining what conversations they want to have during that collaborative time. But we also, when there's specific pieces that we know that they need to dialogue and share with one another, we'll ask them to add that to the agenda as well so that they can talk about those
So
things.
basically, principals meetings or assistant principals meetings is not just driven by your level within a school board office. They're coming up with their own
Yes.
agenda or item that needs to be.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Robin?
Dr. Georgia, thank you.
You actually answered my question.
And I do want to share, I think we also, when we had convocation in August, when the principals are sharing their school improvement plans in the summertime and they share success like Seaford and Tab had, we will often share with them at that point in time, wow, that would be great to have that as a presentation during convocation if you could get your teachers. And very often we'll have those folks present and share at convocation as well.
Great. Fantastic data. You say expect to be fully accredited. When will we know for sure?
The state usually, that information usually comes out later this month, and we will be fully accredited. We just don't typically say it until the state formally announces it. All of our schools have met from their past accreditation data.
Twice
So-
you said expected, so I
Yes, yes,
make
that's just
sure. Yes.
the language that we use until it officially comes out from the state, but all the data is.
Checks in the mail.
will.
on
Yeah,
Saturday.
I have a question, and I don't know if I'm stretching it or not. Just tell me, nobody be quiet and be stretching it. Going back to our areas of weakness, students with disabilities, going back to our concern with staff and not enough staff, that's a correlation? Can we say that's a concern there or not?
So I do believe that good instruction, first instruction happens in that general ed classroom. That's where we really want to make sure that all students are getting access to the standards and that we're really making sure we're catching them as we go along and working with them. And so making sure that our K-2 classrooms, we're monitoring student performance along the way in reading and in math, quickly coming in through our response to intervention program and providing those students with interventions as we need it. Certainly when children are found to have a disability, we want to make sure that those students are getting what they need at that time. So are you referring to where our staffing?
I know that there was concern with the 6.5 teacher shortage. And when we see the weakness in the area of student with disabilities, is there a correlation with not having the teacher pool that we want?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to minimize this situation, but I do want to draw attention to the fact that there was only 4 positions and they were all filled by December for last year, which, accounted for these results. That's a small group of teachers compared to all the students or all the teachers that touch students with disabilities. So, like I said, I don't want to minimize it, but also that we have to keep proper scope.
And it is a population that we are constantly striving to do better and to identify programs and pieces that will help support that student population. But I will remind the board that when you compare how we did with divisions across the state, we were 4th in the state with, it is. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of work that we're doing, and again, we have some schools that are meeting with greater success than others, and so identifying specifically what those schools are doing in that school so that we can, and they do always speak to the people. And the better that our special education teachers are collaborating with our general ed teachers, the more likely we are to meet with success. And the sooner we identify where a student is struggling and meeting them with remediation early versus, as Ms. Skinner said, waiting until we're halfway through the school year and saying, oh goodness, Stephanie doesn't have the skill set. But identifying that very early so that we can remediate immediately.
Those professional learning communities, those weekly meetings, also make sure that we're looking at every student every week, having conversations about those students. It's a team approach. It's not just one person who owns that responsibility. Everyone's involved together looking at that.
Thank you.
That's the biggest piece. Everybody owns
Thank
it.
you, Ms.
It's not your kids.
Thank you.
Thank you, good job.
Dr. Vladu, secondary?
Good evening.
Evening.
So in keeping with the gains made at the school division and elementary level, tonight I'm proud to report that based on preliminary data, all of our middle schools are fully accredited.
I started something, right?
Additionally, I want to share a few highlights. 3 of 4 middle schools have shown growth in English and math. It is important to remember that accreditation results for English and math reflect the performance of several grade levels. What you don't see in these numbers is the performance of each grade. To that end, I want to share that performance at Queens Lake Middle School greatly increased over the previous year with double-digit gains in reading 8th, math 8th, and civics and economics. The highlight of the growth our students at Queens Lake Middle School was found in the writing 8 scores, which increased by 20 percentage points over the previous year. Now I would like to review the reading performance of our AMO subgroups. The areas highlighted in green on the slide represent growth of 2 percentage points or more in reading performance. As you can see, 3 of 4 middle schools show growth in Gap Group 1 and economically disadvantaged students. As you can also see by the data on this chart, our schools will need to do additional work on improving the reading performance of our students with disabilities and our Gap Group 2 students. Later in this presentation, I will discuss the steps we will take to address these needs. Now I would like to review the middle school math AMO performance. In this area, 3 of 4 middle schools met or exceeded all AMO targets. Also, as this chart shows, our schools made growth of 2 percentage points or more in 7 AMO areas over the previous year. Overall, Queens Lake Middle School demonstrated the greatest growth. However, additional work will need to occur to address the math performance of students with disabilities over the coming year. Tonight, I'm also pleased to report that based on preliminary data, all of our high schools are fully accredited. Now, I would like to share a few highlights represented in this chart. All 5 high schools continue to have English and science performance that exceeds 90%. Additionally, 4 of 5 high schools show growth in mathematics. York River Academy had the greatest growth in mathematics with a gain of 9 percentage points over the previous year. And Bruton High School showed the greatest growth in history and science. Lastly, all of our high schools have graduation completion indices exceeding 90%. Later in this presentation, I'll provide additional information related to the graduation performance of our high schools. When it comes to high school reading performance, all of our schools met the AMO targets for all subgroups. I also want to highlight some additional notable gains. Bruton High School had double-digit gains in reading for students with disabilities. Also, Grafton High School had double-digit gains for Hispanic students. Lastly, York River Academy had double-digit gains for Gap Group 1, students with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged students. As it relates to our AMO performance in math, our high schools showed growth of 2 percentage points or more in 20 of 45 areas. I'm also pleased to report that Tabb High School and York High School, as well as York River Academy, have more than exceeded the AMO targets for all subgroups. At 3 of 5 of our high schools, the performance of Gap Group 1, Gap Group 3, economically disadvantaged students, and white students also increased. Grafton High School and Tabb High School increased the performance of Gap Group 2 students. It is also noteworthy that Tabb High School and York High School had double-digit gains in the math performance of students with disabilities. As it relates to our schools that missed AMOs, later in this presentation, I will discuss the steps we will take to address the growth that is needed for our students with disabilities. The graduation of our students is one of our most important outcomes. In this regard, our high schools show growth of more than 2 percentage points in 19 of 40 federal graduation indicator AMO categories. It is also commendable that all of our high schools increased the FGI or maintained 100% for Gap Group 2 and students with disabilities. As Dr. Guy shared, I'm very proud to report that as a division, our FGI performance for students with disabilities increased by more than 18 percentage points over the previous year. I'm also very pleased to report that Bruton High School had made growth or maintained 100% FGI for all measured subgroups. Grafton High School made growth in the FGI of 6 of 8 subgroups. York River Academy had an FGI of 100% in 4 of 6 measured subgroups. Our students, teachers, and schools have worked hard to increase the graduation rates for all students over the past year. These gains are the result of the tremendous work of our teachers, counseling departments, and school administrators. As this is one of the most important outcomes of our work, our schools will continue to work hard in this area. So at this time, I would like to attribute our growth to several factors. As mentioned previously, all of our secondary schools have presented the results of the school improvement plans during the summer. Our schools have cited their growth to several factors. Our school common formative assessments have helped principals, teachers, and students have valuable data to determine the impact of instruction on student learning, make adjustments, and provide timely assistance. Several of our schools participated in a tier system of support over the past year. The implementation of the system resulted in sustained gains for the participating schools. Collaboration is the key to unlocking the potential of every student. The PLC process provides a framework for teachers who share the same content, the same curriculum, and the same students to teach the right stuff at the right level while adjusting instruction and providing help to students along the way. Lastly, greater collaboration and the use of effective teaching models for teams of teachers serving students with disabilities is cited for the growth our schools have made over the past year. At this time, I would like to take a few moments to discuss our next steps. The tier system of support implemented through the PLC process has shown to work. The schools that miss one or more AMO targets will be provided with additional support through this process. Tier 1 instruction in reading and writing will be addressed through the continued implementation of the secondary literacy model. This summer, for the second year in a row, Dr. Vika Stevenson led a middle school literacy academy. Over the course of 2 days in August, teachers learned about the new middle school English curriculum and high-impact teaching strategies. In addition to reading specialists and special education teachers, more than 76% of all middle school English teachers attended this training. The remaining personnel received this training during the pre-service week. We received overwhelmingly positive feedback from attending teachers, as you can see on the slide. We also want to improve the use of our level literacy intervention, or LLI, at the secondary level. This program provides teachers with interventions to help our lowest achieving students. However, as gains in middle school English have not met expectations for students with disabilities, we will need to evaluate the use of all reading interventions. 2 additional interventions will be used by schools that miss AMO targets in mathematics or those that choose to opt in. As you may remember, 2 years ago we began the implementation of VMath and TransMath. Both of these interventions meet students where they are and provide specific assistance to master learning objectives. At this time, I would like to take a moment to review our Advanced Diploma Goal 1 objective. The blue bars on this chart indicate the annual benchmarks in order to meet the goal, while the green bars indicate the percentage of advanced and IB diplomas awarded. As you can see, over the past 5 years, performance on this goal remains relatively unchanged. It is important to remember that there are many factors that contribute to earning the advanced studies or the IB diploma. The last 5 years of performance on this goal have shown little variation in the percentage of advanced diplomas awarded. As the state has now released its class of 2017 graduation report, the dark blue line shows the trend in the state percentage of advanced diplomas awarded. As a comparison, York County School Division continues to significantly outperform the state in the percentage of students that earn the advanced diploma by more than 15 percentage points. Next, I will review school performance in meeting the FY13 Advanced Placement Exam benchmark. The table you are now seeing represents our advanced placement strategic goal performance. The purple column represents last year's performance, which uses the FY13 data as the benchmark for the number of scores of 3 or higher on the advanced placement exams. As you can see in the purple column, last year our school showed a decline of performance on this goal. Now I would like to draw your attention to the column highlighted in gray. As compared to the previous year, Bruton High School increased the number of AP exams with scores 3 or greater from 141 to 187, representing an increase of 33%. Grafton High School also increased the number and percentage of AP exams with scores 3 or higher. The blue row represents our overall status on this goal. As you can see, only Tabb High School has increased performance over and above the 2013 level. Over the next 2 slides, I'll provide some additional information on this goal. While the previous slide showed you a table of our performance on the number and percentage of AP exams with scores 3 or higher, this slide shows the 5-year performance trend. The blue line shows the number of test takers. The green line represents the number of AP exams with scores of 3 or higher, while the purple line represents the number of tests taken. It is important to remember that since 2013, the school division no longer pays for the exam fees. As a result, since we can no longer require to take students to AP exams, The number of test takers has declined as shown by the purple line. What is important about this chart is the 5-year trend on the number of test takers, the numbers of tests taken, and the number of 3 or higher on the AP exams follow similar trends. As stated, an increasing number of students are choosing not to take AP tests. As reported last year, the feedback we received from the AP registration forms did not provide adequate detail as to why students chose not to take the test. As such, this past December, we formed a PLC and we administered a survey to AP students at all 4 high schools. The response rate was phenomenal as we received more than 1,000 responses. The pie chart on this slide shows the reasons students chose not to take the AP exam. As you look at this chart, I want to highlight several areas. The area highlighted in light blue represents 30% of respondents that did not feel to be prepared for the test. It's also important to remember that the survey was given in December when the students had only completed approximately half of the material required for the test. Approximately 14% of students, as shown by the area in orange, reported to sign up for AP classes to challenge themselves or to improve their GPA, though never intending to take the exam. As you can see by the areas in gray and green, 12% respectively report that cost is a factor or the college of choice will not accept the score. Lastly, the area in yellow shows that 25% of respondents were undecided at the time of the survey. As this chart provides additional insight into the decision-making process of our students, we will work hard to educate our students and our parents on the importance of taking AP classes, the AP exam, and earning college credit while still in high school. As a reminder, this past spring, our AP goal has changed with input from various stakeholders during the strategic plan development process. Beginning with FY19, we will report on reducing the gap between underrepresented groups and the general population participating in advanced placement courses by an amount still to be determined. With input from our schools, we will select goals and benchmark for performance over the coming year. To help our schools identify students that have the potential to do well in AP classes but have not yet signed up, our schools will use the AP Potential Report that is available for all students that have taken the PSATs. Training on using this reporting feature was provided to our school counselors and assistant principals this past year. So on behalf of our department, many of which are here tonight, we want to thank you for the opportunity to present the work of our hardworking students, teachers, school staff, school leaders, and the continued support of our parents. At this time, do you have any questions of me?
Questions? Fantastic results. Great. Looking forward. I think the challenge that we all have, we're doing well in so many areas. There are areas we want to improve. We need to maintain what we have in the areas we're doing well in. So that's going to be the hardest part, probably.
Did they recently make any kind of change to how AP tests are given or written or presented to students?
I'm not aware of any specific, but I know many of our teachers actually participate to be exam scorers. And so they get to learn a little bit about the process and bring that back to their schools. So any of those changes are provided to the training. All of our teachers are required to be trained on the AP process, and we have several teachers we sent over the summer to participate in the AP Institute at the College of William.
We have, and this is a phrase we haven't heard in a while. It's wonderful to see the high school graduation rate. And we've done a lot with that merger, that movement between middle school and high school. Do you have any idea what our dropout rate, if it is a percentage there, what it is now?
It is very small. We provide our data, the cohort data, periodically to our schools so they know exactly. So our schools know students by name to try to get these folks back into a school,
Right.
provided with option. That is an ongoing, I can tell you, every week or every couple of weeks, those names come up because it's really one of the top priorities of all of our principals. So we make sure that's at the top of the list.
No, we haven't heard that phrase in a while. It's good not to hear it.
And we can
But-
provide that percentage
Yes.
for you. We just
Yeah.
don't
Just
have that
curious.
this evening.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, like I say every year, let's enjoy it for an evening and let's get back to work.
Enjoy it and maintain it.
Because, you know, staying status quo is kind of moving backwards, so we have to keep pushing. I
Thank you.
get so proud every year when I hear this, it almost makes you want to say, okay, let's just do this, you know, but I think that's what's unique maybe about our folks is they're always pushing ahead, always trying to do better. That's what
Yeah, I just keep focusing on, it's not a question, but, you know, the percentage of AP test scores 3 or plus, you know, from 2013 is watching that. You just, this phenomena is it just, I mean, so how y'all dive into that should be, and bring back strategies or something, because that's interesting.
We found by using the PSAT data that a lot of our students are capable of taking that test. You know, we're testing on skills beginning with 7th grade all the way to 11th. So by using that data, we're hoping that we can recruit additional students that have the potential, but they need some coaching and, you know, somebody to believe in them. And also, I think that there are just so many reasons, as we found out by the survey. You know, for instance, folks are taking it just to improve their GPA because it's a weighted credit. Some of them responded in that manner, and some of them are you know, earning college credit. But we need to continue that dialogue and train our schools to use that data.
Has it become more of an issue that colleges aren't accepting those AP?
And that's the sort of the crux of the matter, that it really depends. So if you happen to have a major that is different, they may not accept one area over another. And so what we encourage folks is to talk to the college they're going to. Oftentimes, there's just so many advantages because, as you know, if a student needs to take an additional semester, well, those AP tests may not require them to take that semester, which saves parents a lot of money. So we still need to communicate with our kids and our families and educate them on the benefits of taking AP classes.
And in some schools, they won't give them credit per se, but they can take the next higher level course, which also can be a double-edged sword because I'm stepping into a higher level course without having taken the lower level course before it. And so sometimes students learn, no, I do want to take that lower level course before I take the next level course.
Are there still programs, I hate to keep harping on this one, but back to the college or the community college route possibly, but are there programs or school districts anywhere that have a best practices model that kids that hit that senior year and, you know, so many of the credits are completed that they literally could go to a community college for the partial year to gain or to gather up, it may not be AP testing numbers, but it's actually taking college level courses that is blended with their high school.
Part of our new strategic plan is looking at specifically that and exploring those opportunities for our students.
Would that be a dual enrollment or just if they've met so many credits, just
It
moving
may be
on?
on dual enrollment.
Beyond that, okay.
Dual enrollment opportunities, such as we've had in the past, but also opportunities for students to actually be taking classes at a community college. You know, whether it's in the second semester of their senior year, but developing those options and working with families in our community and our staff to see what those look like.
And I think I've heard of this before, so we've actually had some students already doing that.
Mhm.
Correct. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Kudos to everybody. Fantastic.
Great presentation.
Very good, thank you.
Is
Great
there-
job, Dr. Lodge.
That is everything that, other than a closed session that I see on the agenda. Is there anything else we need to discuss? Then I am in need of a motion to move to a closed session, please.
I move that the York County School Board convene in closed session pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act to discuss personnel matters as to the performance of a specific employee.
Second, please.
Second.
Ms. Ward.
A motion is made by Dr. George and seconded by Mr. Richardson for the York County School Board to convene in closed session. Dr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Messer?
Yes.
Mrs. Haywood?
Yes, thank you. We are adjourned.